And let's talk about this guy, Brian Mbuemo, signs for Manchester United. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? Now, look, we know over the last few days that it is, and it was always going to happen. We got the here we go. When was it? Was it Friday? I think it was Friday, whenever it was, Friday anyway. But the key thing here was getting him away with the squad on the US tour. That was the key, wasn't it? And it was a kind of the time frame that everybody was talking about, and Manchester United fans specifically. He really only missed a week of pre-season because he only started last Monday with Brentford. And now he's a Manchester United player less than a week later. So absolutely fantastic news. Manchester United have confirmed it. The wait is over. Yeah, brilliant, fantastic news. And he has been speaking. Obviously, it's the usual kind of snippets that we get. He says, as soon as I knew there was a chance to join Manchester United, I had to take the opportunity to sign for the club of my dreams. This is the team whose shirt I wore growing up. And look, we spoke, didn't we, when Cunha signed? And we talk a little bit about the mentality within the Manchester United squad and, the reasons behind people playing for Manchester United. Is it the paycheck? Is it is it seen as maybe a bit of a retirement home for older players to get one last big deal? Well, if this window and this transfer window has anything to go by with the 3 players that have signed from the 1st of July, it's completely flipped on its head. We now are signing players who want to play for Manchester United. Now, look, I do think Ineos focused heavily on that last summer as well. Ugarte, Delict, Yoro, Xerxes, and Matraoui. Very, very good signings for Manchester United. You would say the bulk of them players have been our best players last season and up there with the better performers, even though it was an absolutely horrendous season. But when you hear the likes of Cunha, you hear the likes of Diego Leon, and now you're hearing the likes of Brian Mbuemo, and it was so clear from minute one that Brian Mbuemo, is it Mbuemo, is it Mbuemo? I'm going to call him Mbuemo. I'm going to use the U in his name. It was quite clear from minute one, wasn't it, that he didn't want anybody else other than Manchester United. There was reports that other teams were coming in for him. He made it quite clear that Manchester United was the only destination he wanted to go to this summer, and he was quite comfortable at staying with Brentford. If a deal to Manchester United didn't, find its way to happening. But it's great to hear. It really, really is. When we're starting to sign players and you're getting these signings, real quality players in their prime that want to play for Manchester United. And when you can't offer them a title challenge and you can't offer them European football next season, any player that you get, either he is an up-and-coming player who's, maybe looking to make a name for himself, or, especially with the established players like Cunha and Mbuemo, these guys want to play for Manchester United. They want to play for Manchester United. And it's great to hear. It is absolutely great to hear. Now, he will wear the number 19 at Manchester United. I don't really have anything much to say on that. Only happy days. 19. Is there any standout number 19s? Nothing that jumps to mind, and maybe that's why he chose the number himself. But yeah, look, nonetheless, he's got a 9 in it, and that's all that matters. He's a forward player. He's going to be scoring goals for Manchester United. And look, in terms of the transfer window and how it's going so far, look, obviously we spoke last week, didn't we, before we got the here we go, and it was 2 players technically, Diego Leon. We signed our first player, Joshua Xerxes, last summer on the 14th. So only a week later, in this year's transfer window, we've got 3 players in. So I do think business is being done, and it's good to see. And again, we go back on what we said about Mbuemo only wanting Manchester United. I thought that made United quite relaxed in the transfer window, and they didn't have to rush a deal, and they could see how it transpired. As long as they got him in before the American tour and that he was on that plane to go there, that's all that mattered for Manchester United in my eyes. And look, Ruben Amorim has got 2 number 10s, and he's starting to fill up that position, and fill up that forward line. And I've got to reiterate, lads, because I'm still hearing a lot of people online talking about the what's the priority and where should United be going next? And a lot of people are saying a goalkeeper. And we do have updates on goalkeepers tonight as well. But it's the forward line. It's getting goals into that team that was the big issue last year. And I seen who was talking about it tonight or on TalkSport. Neil Warnock was talking about the fact that Mbuemo was signed, and we were talking about they were talking about United going for a number 9, and he said, "Oh God, I wouldn't do that. I'd be sorting out the back line first. You need another defender, another goalkeeper." And it's the mainstream media just stirring up absolute wibble about Manchester United. Lads who don't know what they're talking about and don't watch Manchester United week in and week out like me and you. While I understand that the back line and the goalkeeper do need to be improved, it is not the key area of concern for Manchester United at the moment. It's getting goals into the team. So in my eyes specifically, and I think the majority of people who are getting involved in the chat night after night on this channel tend to agree that it does have to be a striker. It really, really does. And if we could, in another week or two, maybe cut out Ruben Amorim's head there or his whole body and just put in an Ollie Watkins or a Benjamin Sesko or even a Victor Gyökeres, which we'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes, it would be absolutely fantastic. It really, really would. But nonetheless, guys, I mean, Mbuemo to Manchester United is absolutely fantastic news. Keep getting your comments in. I'll get to them now once we go through the last couple of slides here on it. Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail has said that Chelsea made a late bid for Mbuemo, but he only wanted Manchester United. And again, it just reiterates the fact that United are now signing players, and they're getting players even without European football, even without the genuine possibility of going and challenging for a league title or a Champions League or whatever the case may be. We're signing players that want to play for Manchester United, and that's absolutely fantastic. It really, really is. And finally, guys, Rob Dawson in ESPN says that United are unhappy with how Brentford handled the negotiation, repeatedly changing their valuation, which even reached £70 million plus £7 million in add-ons at one point. The feeling is that Brentford wanted Mbuemo to choose Newcastle or Spurs. And again, this may lead to the delay in getting a deal over the line. And I think ultimately these reports, I don't know if this one would have any validity really, because we know why Manchester United went in with a third bid so quickly after the visa to Newcastle links, and it was because Brentford weren't going to sell both players this summer, and it was only going to be one or the other that left Brentford. So Manchester United had to move, and they had to move quickly. But the fact that you're hearing some of these reports that Brentford, we do know that they upped their valuation at least once, and it did kind of, not that it spooked Manchester United, but they said, no, look, our offer is there, and we're just going to sit on that offer for a while, and we're not going to rush into. If that was Ed Woodward, he would have fucking jumped that 70 plus 7. Oh, yeah, take it, right, grand, and we'll give you another 20 million when he scores 20 goals for us. This is a very composed and a very calculated way of negotiations that we're not used to seeing in the past 10 to 15 years at Manchester United. And it's refreshing, it's got to be said. And I know there are, and even the guys that, a lot of the guys that do the podcast with us, Chris and Oisín and Ben and Desi and the guys, were saying that, they thought it was maybe a little bit of incompetence out of Ineos and so on and so forth. And I always kept cool, to be honest. I thought, well, look, if you look at it objectively, United are not going to rush in to trying to sign Mbuemo. There's too many balls in our side of the court, and I think we held our nerve quite well. And yeah, ultimately, the job was done, and we got it. We got the deal over the line.